The Murder Castle, the tale of H. Holmes. Once upon a time, in the heart of a bustling city, there stood a palace unlike any other. It wasn't built of gold or marble, but of secrets, lies, and death. Its creator, a man named H. Holmes, was no mere architect, but a master of deception, a collector of lives, and the darkest prince of a kingdom that no one ever escaped. The tale begins in Chicago during the shimmering promise of the 1893 World's Fair, a celebration of innovation, wonder, and progress. Millions flocked to the city to witness marvels of the modern world. But among the crowds was a man with a smile as sharp as the knives he hid behind his charm. Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, as he called himself, was a doctor, a pharmacist, and a gentleman, or so he wanted people to believe. Behind his polished manners and warm demeanor, there was something else, a shadow that watched, waited, and calculated every move. Holmes had a dream, but it wasn't a dream of creation. It was one of destruction. On a corner lot in the Inglewood neighborhood of Chicago, he constructed his masterpiece, a 3-story building that would come to be known as the Murder Castle. To the outside world, it was a grand hotel, designed to accommodate the influx of visitors to the World's Fair. But to Holmes, it was a labyrinth of horror. The castle was a house of puzzles, and Holmes was its architect and puppet master. Inside, there were rooms with no doors and doors that led to nowhere. Staircases spiraled endlessly, and hallways twisted and turned, doubling back on themselves. But the most terrifying parts of the castle were hidden from plain sight. Secret chambers with soundproof walls, trapdoors that dropped victims into the depths of the building, and chutes that slid bodies straight into the basement. It was a house designed not for living, but for dying. Holmes hired and fired workers frequently, ensuring no one knew the full layout of his sinister domain. A man of perfection, they called him, unaware of what he was perfecting. His charm was a mask, and it worked well. People trusted him, women especially. He had a way of making them feel seen, special. They came to his hotel seeking refuge, romance, or employment. What they found instead was a nightmare. Holmes's methods were meticulous. He would lure his victims into rooms that locked from the outside. Some rooms were filled with gas pipes, where he could silently poison his guests. Others were equipped with iron restraints, holding the victim, while Holmes watched their life slip away. Once his gruesome work was done, he would send their bodies down the chutes to the basement, a macabre workshop where he stripped flesh from bone, harvesting the remains for profit. Skeletons were sold to medical schools, while the rest was discarded like trash. To Holmes, people were not people, they were pieces, parts, and profits. But the castle was not just a machine of death, it was a stage, and Holmes reveled in playing the role of the puppeteer. He toyed with his victims, weaving himself into their lives, gaining their trust before snuffing it out. One by one, they vanished, some locals, some travelers. But no one asked questions. In the chaos of the fair, disappearances were easy to overlook. Perhaps they left the city, people would say. Perhaps they simply moved on. But Holmes knew the truth. They never left. For years, the Murder Castle thrived in its horrific secrecy. But as with all fairy tales of darkness, the monster's downfall began with greed. Holmes had a habit of weaving lies as intricate as his castle's design, and one such lie caught the attention of the authorities. Insurance fraud, of all things, unraveled his web. When investigators finally set foot in the castle, they were not prepared for what they found. The basement was a charnel house, a dungeon filled with blood-stained tools, vats of acid, and charred remains. Human bones lay scattered like broken toys. Rooms were lined with scratch marks, the final, desperate attempts of those who tried to escape. The walls themselves seemed to hum with the memory of the horrors they had witnessed. What the investigators found was not a man's home, but the physical embodiment of a nightmare. Holmes confessed to some of his crimes, but danced around the truth like a predator toying with its prey. He claimed responsibility for 27 murders, though many believe the real number was far higher. His trial was a spectacle, with Holmes himself acting as both the accused and the star. He smiled in court, his charm as chilling as ever. "I was born with the devil in me," he said, his words sending shivers through those who heard them. "I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than a poet can help the inspiration to sing." H. Holmes was eventually sentenced to death, and his life ended at the gallows in 1896. But the story doesn't end there. The murder castle itself met a fiery end, burned to the ground in a mysterious blaze. Some say it was the townsfolk, desperate to erase the darkness from their city. Others believe the fire was Holmes' final revenge, his way of ensuring no one else could uncover the full extent of his evil. But the shadow of Holmes still lingers. They say that on quiet nights in Chicago, when the fog rolls in and the city falls silent, you can still hear footsteps echoing through the ghost of the murder castle. Some say it's the souls of the victims, trapped forever in the maze of their final moments. Others believe it's Holmes himself, wandering the ruins of his dark empire, searching for his next victim. Hush now, darling, don't you cry. The walls have ears, and they hear you sigh. Twist and turn, the stairs do lie, down in the dark, where the secrets die. The castle hums, its master near. Step by step, he draws you here. Close your eyes, don't make a sound, for Holmes still walks where death is found. And so the tale of H. Holmes ends, but the horror of his story remains. Be wary of strangers with kind smiles, dear listener. Sometimes behind the charm, there lies a shadow that waits to claim you. Sleep well, and don't stray too far from the light.